Hello, guys. Welcome back to Top Edge Podcast. So today I'm joined by a very special guest, Mr. Vedant Rusty himself. First celebrity I've had on this podcast.
Celebrity.
A cross between a close friend and a celebrity, actually. And I was his second guest on his own podcast. Check that out. So today we're going to talk about the IPL. The IPL starting tomorrow. This is when we're shooting this. And first match is Chennai, Kolkata. And me and Rusty are going to sit down and basically dissect what we feel about each team, how we think they should line up best, and with a few nuances of our own memories when it comes to the IPL. How I started off, when I think of the IPL, what comes to mind. Rusty, what he thinks about that.
Perfect.
So Vedant, if you could please introduce yourself.
I mean, introduction. Okay, I have a question. We just have to do English, right?
Yeah.
Perfect. So it's going to be a little more, it's going to take me a while to switch entirely to English because I do not these days have conversations that are entirely in English. When I think back to the IPL, I vividly remember the first game. I mean, almost everyone who's seen the IPL does remember that first game because I remember watching it on my small, those CRT televisions, which are those big televisions with a round screen and a big back, and great memories all throughout the whatever 15th season I think we're gonna get into this year.
Yeah.
For the IPL, yeah, all throughout great entertainment. I remember IPL for me and my friends particularly has evolved from being a must see every night, discuss every match, watch out for the playoffs, go out when we are in college to clubs, not clubs, but sports bars to watch the game, and going out to screenings. And these days, it's essentially a part of life that for the 2 months that it's on, it becomes a part of your life. Every evening, regardless of what I'm doing, I will be watching the IPL game somewhere. Either it's on my TV, either I'm checking the score on my phone, either when I'm outside, it's still playing on in the background. And I love how for those 2 months, it becomes almost a staple throughout the country. In fact, even when I was in London, I remember checking out, keeping a track of the IPL and discussing a lot of these scores with you as well.
Yeah.
So good fun. I think IPL is a great connector culturally for this country, which is crazy about cricket. I think that's a good place to place the IPL in
I
my
agree.
life.
Same for me as well. Whenever I felt I've gone to India, for them 2-3 months, you go for dinner, you go for drinks, you go anywhere. There'll be an IPL match on the TV. If you go anywhere between 7 p.m. and 11 p.m., regardless where you go, the IPL will be happening. And I think it's such a diverse cultural shift as well. I feel as though it's got a lot of women into cricket as well, I feel. The IPL. And I think that's spectacular to see. I think through that, people like seeing their best and their famous stars, their favorite stars playing across different teams, Rohit, Virat, Dhoni. And it's this competition of them being pitched against each other, which I feel as though is what drives
I
it.
think that was the biggest charm of the IPL when it started. At least the first couple of years, all the great Indian players playing against each other in this entirely new format. Okay, I have a question for you then. Which is your favorite IPL batting performance that you have seen live as in on a TV while it was happening?
First one that came to mind when you said it was Virat Kohli against Kings 11 Punjab. He smashed that 100 of some 50 odd balls. And if you remember, he had like a fractured thumb in that match. And this was a must-win game for RCB. I think this was in his stellar 2016 season when he scored 970 odd runs. And despite Virat's immense performance throughout the season, I think RCB were quite slow out of the blocks. And in that season, like fielding in the match before that, he did something to his thumb. And then it was just this insane moment when he got his 100. He took his helmet off and started going like this to his thumb, if you remember. And like as a kid growing up, I must have been maybe 16, 17 at the time, 16 probably. And you know this better than most people, how much I idolize him. And that was like, wow. Like, because if you remember before that, he hadn't scored a single IPL 100. So that was like, in the season before that. That's what I'm saying. So for that season, he came, scored 4. And everyone's like, damn.
Well, I remember that season. I remember that 973 season. For me, it was, I think, the first 100 that Virendra Sehwag scored in the IPL. if I'm not wrong. Either it was 100 or it was some. I don't think it was 100. I think it was somewhere in the 90s. He came in. It was Delhi Daredevil game.
Okay.
This was the season where Delhi Daredevil finished first in the league.
Yeah.
Yeah, and the beautiful inning.
Was this the match against Pune?
I don't remember if Pune existed back then. It was, I think, the third or fourth season of the IPL. I don't remember what season, what match. I just remember Virendra Sehwag going all bonkers. Beautiful inning. The only inning that I miss not having seen live is Chris Gale's 175.
Yeah, I didn't see that live either.
I watched the highlights a lot of times, but I still can't get it out of my head what would it have been to watch it live. The only thing that I remember about that game was that Bhuvneshwar Kumar, who's technically my neighbor, he lives around a couple of, not even a couple of kilometers, a kilometer away from my place. And he was the only bowler who did not get smashed.
Yeah, he was going at like economy of 6 or something, right? He went 4 overs 23 or 27 or something along those lines.
I remember that.
I remember
These were
going
the
back from school.
memories that vividly. I also remember Sohail Tanvir's 6 for something that he took in
when the Pakistanis could play.
When the Pakistanis could play, yes. I remember Shoaib Akhtar.
What do you think about that actually? What do you think about that? Like, do you think having the Pakistanis in the IPL, obviously it would raise the caliber of the tournament, but do you think it's a miss or do you think it's not too much of a miss?
I mean, initially I was of the belief that, of course, it's a miss to not have that talent pool. Yeah. But now, since they have a league of their own, which you can very easily go and watch, I think there's nothing you can do about the political stuff. I mean, on an individual level, of course.
Yeah.
But I, of course, like to see, but in my opinion, if there are political, if there is a tension between the countries, it is better that we go side with the decision of the government. So all that stuff.
Yeah. But as a fan, I'm sure you could agree.
As a fan, I would love to see the
Babar, Rizwan, you know.
Of course.
Babar and Virat for RCB, maybe in the next 3 years. Maybe.
You can hope.
But yeah, so like going back to that match you were talking about, Chris Gale's match. I remember coming back from home, back from school, looking at, I didn't have a phone back then and stuff, going home on my computer, having this look at what the score was, and seeing Ishwar Pandey go for around 60 runs in his 4 overs. I was like, wow, I'm definitely missed it. Have you watched any matches live, like in the stadium?
I have a couple of matches live. Mostly they're Delhi matches because, I mean, of course, I live in Delhi. Yeah. I've been to the Kotla I think I've seen 3 IPL games live. This is across 6-7 years. This is across 6-7 years.
Which one stood out for you?
I don't remember those games. I mean, two of those games were Delhi versus Punjab. And those were very normal IPL games. One, I think Punjab won, I think Delhi won. I don't even remember which the third game was with. It was Delhi. But because you go out to watch these games with your friends, so you're out there for the environment. You're not really focusing on what the score is, unless there is a breakout performance that happens. Like I remember watching the India versus South Africa test match that happened in Firozshah, me and my flatmate. I think this is again 2014 or 15. And we spent the entire day sitting from 11 in the morning, 9 in the morning, 10 in the morning, till 5 in the evening in the last session where the entire South African team got bowled out. Yeah. So those are the kind of
India has got like 40 runs of 200 odd balls or something. Was this the same match or?
I think so.
Yeah, that was incredible. I saw a very different.
So again, watching the IPL games live is sort of an event. You don't go there particularly for the cricket game. The cricket game just happens to be there. You're out there for the environment. You're out there for the enthusiasm. You're out there for the audience. You're out there for the pre and post match celebrations. Because ultimately, because it's an Indian tournament, if your team wins, then well and good. If your team does not win, then it's still also, I mean, you don't go out feeling dejected out of the game, unless it's a knockout or a qualifier, that kind of stuff. But yeah, IPL games, this year again, they're not happening across the country. But if and when they do happen around where I am at that moment, I would love to go watch more.
As a personal thing, as a player's instinct, I think I've been involved in a couple IPL camps in and around the Delhi camp, in and around seeing some of the guys. And one thing that you see, which I personally saw, was how much pressure is there from an external point of view. I think as spectators, when we start calculating, RCB needs to win this many matches or Delhi needs to win this many matches, the net run rate, within the camp, I wouldn't say I've been part of the team, but as somebody who has just managed to be lucky enough to have a bit of an insight to what has been happening within the setup, these guys just enjoy their time, especially the overseas players. They're there,
Of course,
they're having fun.
that is what they have to do. If you
Yeah.
get into the complexities of what you need to do to win a game, the net run rate that you need to score, then in my opinion, I think it will be very difficult for you as a player to perform. So you have to keep your head clear, I think.
No, I agree. And then this is something I've just saw, which was such a stark contrast as a player myself. You know, sometimes you're playing your league and then you start looking at it like, oh, we're fourth in the league. To win, we need this many points in our next 6 matches, 7 matches. These guys don't care. They're looking at the next game. They're like, we want to win. How are we going to win it? And moving on a separate item, which goes to show the professionalism, which is mind-blowing. Vedant, you haven't told us which team you support. We know you're from Meerut. We know you live in Delhi.
Okay, so this year is going to be a tough decision to take because there's never been a team except Delhi that I could physically feel close to, as in proximity. Now there's a Lucknow team.
Yeah.
The only problem, it's not even a problem. I don't think I particularly will have a problem because I resonate more with the Delhi sentiment because it's so close to where I live. Lucknow is somewhat detached. So I'm still going to end up rooting for Delhi, but there's going to be a soft spot for
Where's the Lucknow in your blood?
There's none. It's just I've got a few friends. Yeah, there's a few friends that I have from Lucknow. I've been to Lucknow a few times for debates, and so there's not much sentiment towards Lucknow. It's just that it's a UP thing. It's a state that I belong to, so you sort of incline towards it slightly. But I would still end up supporting Delhi.
My mom's from Kanpur. She studied in Lucknow all her life. I have family in Lucknow. So there is somewhat of an attachment there. I'm a big fan of KL Rahul as well. But I think it'll be tough for me to look anywhere past RCB and Chennai.
I get it. I get it.
It's always RCB and Chennai for me. Like whenever these two play, I'm very neutral. I'm like, whoever wins, wins. It's a Dhoni and Kohli boy growing up. But yeah.
I think most people root for Chennai just for Dhoni.
Absolutely.
I got really confused in terms of what I was supposed to feel when I found out that Dhoni has handed over the captaincy to
so what did you feel? Please tell us what you felt about that.
Again, that's what I'm trying to figure out still. I feel very confused because of course, because Dhoni is playing and he's been such an overarching presence from as far as I can remember watching cricket, at least from after the 2007 World Cup, the T20 World Cup.
Yeah.
So there's always that sentiment that goes towards Dhoni. I would, of course, miss him being on screen whenever there's a toss happening, because those are the moments that you would look out for as a player to see him. So we see more of him. We'll see him on the screen. We'll see him mentor Jadeja in many ways. But this season definitely or most probably will end up being his farewell kind of a thing.
Season, I think. Yeah.
I think so. I don't think he'll be playing next season regardless.
He made this statement in like I think it was, the TVS, the bike. I think they partnered with Chennai. I think he made a statement in one of the press conferences saying his last game will be in Ranchi. He said his last game as an Indian was in Ranchi. His last game as a Chennai Super Kings boy will be in Chennai. And this particular IPL, there's going to be no games in Chennai. So as a Dhoni fan, I'm just extrapolating, hoping he will play next season. But as a fan of cricket, as a practical person, I just feel as though his position in cricket as a batsman is no longer valid.
It's no longer valid. There's no there's only value in the sense
as a captain.
The word is as a tactician, maybe not even a captain. So as a tactician, does Dhoni still keep the wickets for Chennai? I think that will be the responsibility that he takes on, at least for the next couple of seasons, however long he plays. I think he'll do something which like Gambhir did in his last season for Delhi. Maybe he goes on to the next season when all things are normal. He'll play a couple of games. He'll play his final sign-off game in Chennai.
And then
hand over properly and move on to being a mentor, which I think is the rightful place.
Which I think Chennai is Dhoni and Dhoni is Chennai when it comes to the IPL anyways. And I think Jadeja I think what this does for Jadeja is it puts him on the map for the Indian captaincy as well. I think, personal opinion of mine, I feel as though he's somebody that people look past very quickly because his performances have been, as Sanjay Manjrekar called him, a bits and pieces cricketer. I personally disagree with that. I feel as though Jadeja adds immense value to the Indian team. And recently more so, I think he's the only player averaging over 50 in the last 3 years for India
Oh.
in test matches or in Sena countries, which is incredible. Yeah, so the reason why I was saying that was because right now we tried Rahul. We saw how Rahul fared in South Africa. He was
Lost all the games, right?
Yeah, he captained and he didn't captain too well. We've seen him with Punjab in the previous years, getting the team to a winning position and then losing. I think Punjab were probably a top 4 team in the last couple of seasons, and they just can't close.
100%. Yeah.
Just can't close games out with somebody of like, I think Punjab was so well covered in all bases. Mayank Agarwal, Chris Gale, KL Rahul, and then in bowling, Mohammad Shami, Bishnoi. Like they were a pretty strong team and they were doing well. I just think they weren't full of closing games out, and that caused them. We're looking at Pant.
Chris Gale is not playing this season, right?
Here is at Lucknow now.
Chris Gale?
Sorry, I thought you said KL.
KL is at Lucknow. Chris Gale is not playing this season.
I think another loss to IPL. I think Chris Gale. What's your favorite Chris Gale memory? The 175?
No, I think my favorite Chris Gale memories, what even before he was playing in Bangalore, the KKR memories.
Okay.
He was playing for KKR. Yeah.
I'll tell you my favorite.
He didn't do much there, but again, just those vivid early IPL memories of Chris Gale standing in the black and gold of KKR and just doing what Chris Gale does. But of course, the best ones are when he's been playing for Bangalore.
My favorite one is for Bangalore, but I think it's not the one people think of. It's the very first game he played for Bangalore. In the IPL auction, he didn't get picked. They brought him in halfway through against KKR. He got 97 that game, if I remember correctly. And I think it was someone called Abdullah, leg spinner. He purposely balled 3 wides down the leg side, so Chris Gale wouldn't get his 100. And that is my favorite Chris Gale memory, because he came in, and obviously Chris Gale had his, like, he was known around the world, but he's always had a phase of inconsistency around him.
Of course.
He has been extremely feared as a T20 cricketer. In my opinion, one of the greatest of all time when it comes to T20s. He didn't get picked purely, I think either it was his fitness or his inconsistency, but he came in and then smoked it everywhere that game. I remember that and I was like, wow. And he went on to score like quite a lot more runs that season as well.
I think the same thing happened when he got picked by Punjab as well. I remember nobody bid for him, and it was the last round of the auction, and then Punjab just bid for him for 2 crores, I think. And then he scored 200s that season.
Yeah. Okay, I think, again, hit and miss player, but if he hits, he hits.
Yeah.
Right. We'll move
on. For this season. I for some reason think Mumbai will win somehow.
This season again?
I think. I mean, there's one reason that I sort of makes sense in my head. Most of the games are happening in Maharashtra, in and around their own. And venues do have a tactical advantage. You can call the Pune or as a home ground for whatever team, but you know that when Mumbai comes out and plays there, they will have a slight edge towards them.
Not even a slight, I just think they'll have a massive edge. I think Mumbai's fan army is vocal. And I think it makes a huge difference when you're playing in front of 40,000 people who are supporting you. And you're playing in a stadium week in, week out, game in, game out. Every time you're playing as a home game.
Yeah.
It does make a massive difference. But I do feel Mumbai are weaker this season. They've lost Bolt, they've lost Pandya, they've lost De Kock. Someone in the
Archer this season.
Yeah, someone in the middle of the order they've lost with Pandya, one of their best bowlers they've lost, and a really reliable opener. So all 3 departments, they've lost a key player. And I don't think replacements are all that good either, to be honest. This Tim David, and I think Tim David's someone to watch out for, but I feel
personally, I would want Mumbai to finish last this season.
Yeah, same. I'm not a huge Mumbai fan either.
I mean, for a very simple reason that it's boring to see them win every time.
Yeah.
So at least just to add some sort of an excitement within the league, the Mumbai finishes last.
What's that phrase you use? Is the wooden spoon? The last two match, the last
Yeah,
two.
the wooden spoon. The wooden spoon is
Mumbai
the.
spoon match. that
I
would
think,
be.
I think the. Uh, I think that would be fun to predict. I mean, one day before the IPL starts, I think Mumbai. For some reason, I have a feeling that Mumbai will win, like I said, because of the advantage. But
Yeah.
I would definitely want them to finish within the last two. And because there are 10 teams, it would be even more exciting to see them finish last or second last. The other team that I think for some reason would not do well is Hyderabad.
Okay. And
I
why is that?
mean,
Is that
they've
just
always been, ever since they've been in the tournament, they've always been a formidable team. I think they won their second season that they played.
yeah.
And since then, they've just been nothing good to write home about. So I think that would continue
If I
this
would
year.
ask your top four, and if I would ask you in the last team as well, so you're saying, so who would that be?
So top four in no particular order.
Yeah.
I would definitely want Delhi to be there.
Not
I
who do you see being there? Don't go with like a emotional connect. I want like theoretically and practically, who do you see in the top four?
okay, definitely Delhi, because Delhi has the Delhi team has that, in my opinion, the right amount of unpredictability in that team, which is very important in the IPL. And I have a intuitive feeling that Prithvi Shaw is going to do really well this season. I hope.
I have a great mix
And
of experience as well with like Warner, Shaw, Pant. Yeah,
so
Marsh.
got the right mix of unpredictability
Yeah,
and experience. So Delhi, I see doing really well. Chennai, I think, as always, they're a great team. The one odd season that they had, where they finished towards the end, was
yeah,
followed by a win and a runners-up season. I think. I think they won and then they came last and then they won again, or they were runners-up. It was some weird order,
yeah.
but I think I see that pattern being followed this year as well. I The other two team, I'm not too sure about the two new teams,
Okay.
Lucknow and the Pune team.
That's
Uh,
what I was going to ask you. Gujarat, sorry. That's what I was going to ask you in
yeah.
the next question. How do you think they'd fare? But yeah, so you've said Delhi.
I think Lucknow has a better chance. Lucknow has, in my opinion, I think Lucknow has just looks like a better team compared to Gujarat,
Yeah,
particularly.
I agree. You said
Mm.
Mumbai. You said Mumbai were favorites to win in your eyes. You thought they would win, so I'm guessing you put them in your top four as well.
No, I mean the favorites to win. There's no particular reason why I think Mumbai will win, except that it's their home ground where the matches are being played, and they
Okay.
have that thing where they do turn tables midway through the season. I'm just saying that I would want them to lose because it just gets boring to see them win five times. Like
Yeah.
with Chennai, it's exciting because Chennai has a particular passion towards it. I personally don't feel that towards Mumbai, but I
Uh,
wouldn't place them in my top four. I think they would finish. I think they would finish somewhere in the middle,
yeah.
fourth to fourth, fifth or sixth
Yeah.
probably,
Yeah.
but not in my top four. Not in my top four.
You've got Chennai. You've got Delhi. Who are the other two then?
I think Lucknow might do well,
Okay.
and I mean I'm not so sure about RCB,
Okay.
but maybe RCB. I would put RCB as the fourth one.
Fine. And who's finishing
Mm.
last?
I would want Mumbai to finish last, but I think it will be Rajasthan for a very simple reason that throughout this conversation never came up as
I have
a
something
f-
to say about this.
Hmm.
This is what I was going to say. So I think Rajasthan is going to shock everyone.
Hmm.
Everyone, you've heard it here first. Rajasthan are winning this IPL.
This
Okay.
season.
Now let me tell you why.
Why?
Playing the matches in the same 3-4 venues over and over again. Same wickets are going to get used over and over again. You saw what happened in UAE. The wickets
Hmm.
got tackier. Run scoring became more and more difficult. They still had
Hmm.
qualifier game between Delhi and Kolkata. If you remember when Ashwin and everybody just it was crazy. I don't know how Kolkata won that game. But out of every single team in the IPL, in my opinion, Rajasthan have the best spinners. They have Chahal
Hmm.
and they have Ashwin. And I think
Jalen Ashwin,
he's
yes.
going to play an immense role in this IPL. I think now they've got a decent mix of youth and experience. They have Samson, they have Butler. In my previous podcast, I've always said in the IPL, what matters is having great Indian players. And I think Rajasthan has good Indian players. They have Jaiswal and particular young Indian players. But Parag, I'm not a huge fan of, but I think it's fine. They have Samson. Then they have Butler as well, who's obviously not an Indian player, but an incredible player nonetheless. Then Ashwin, Chahal. So yeah, like they are extremely well equipped. I think Rajasthan are going to shock everyone. So that's my out of the box prediction. If it,
if it works.
I want 1 million subscribers by the end of the year. But yeah, so if I'm going to give my top 4, I would say Rajasthan. Again, in no particular order, but inclination that Rajasthan will win. Rajasthan, Chennai, Kolkata, and a toss-up between RCB or Delhi.
Why Kolkata though?
I think Kolkata are looking good. I think with Kolkata, they have, again, same issue, things working for them. Good Indian team. They have good experience at the top. They have Rahane now, bit of experience. Yes, not playing as much, but Venkatesh Iyer has been quality. They have Shreyas Iyer now. I think Cummins, obviously, he's been great. He's doing well in Pakistan as well. Narayan Chakravarti, Russell. I think Kolkata have managed to retain a core group of the same players that got them to the final last year. And if, in my opinion, what they were lacking in previous years was a good number 4. Morgan was out of form, and now they've got Iyer, and I think that just completely sorts that out. And
if they announced the captain, is Shubman Gill going to be the captain?
He's going to Gujarat, so the captain is Iyer.
So they've announced it as a captain. Yeah. Oh, I think that would be interesting.
And I think Iyer's I personally love Iyer. I think he's such a dynamic cricketer. I think he adds so much value to a team.
I would put Iyer topmost as next long-term Indian captain, to be very honest.
I can completely agree with that. So these would be my top 4. And I think the team who will come last is Lucknow.
Lucknow?
Yeah. I just have a feeling. Like, again, I'm making some out of the box predictions here, but it's just a gut feeling. I feel as though Rahul's captaincy hasn't been that great. And yeah, for some reason I feel as though Lucknow will finish last.
I mean, even historically, newer teams haven't done well in there.
Yeah, exactly. And that's another factor, that they are a new team. It does take time to establish yourself into a competition.
Yeah. The competition as a fan base, and I mean, people are also quite skeptical because the last few times new teams have come around, all of them have gone. New teams.
And also, this new team doesn't get to play in its home ground, right? That's another thing. Like, this new team is playing its matches. Every single game is an away game. It doesn't have experience playing in a home venue. It doesn't have experience in creating a fan base.
So essentially, there's no fan base for them.
No fan base. Lucknow people already have fans, correct?
Yeah.
Like, if I was living in Lucknow, I've been supporting Chennai for the last 11 years. I'm not going to suddenly.
I would not suddenly shift to supporting Lucknow. Yeah. Unless they do really well this season and they don't finish last and they win, or finish in as a runner-up, or at least play the qualifiers. What do you think about the format though of this IPL?
Bizarre. I think it is a bizarre format. I feel as though, like, this entire group table that they made, that the team opposite you play 1 game, the team and you play 2 games. I think it's a bit odd. I think what people do want to see is everyone play everyone at the same amount of times.
Yeah, I think that would be the best. Just have a 10-team round robin, play each team twice. There'll be extra games, of course, so that's good for revenue. The only thing is it'll go on longer. I don't know. I loved the days of the IPL when there used to be a double header every weekend.
Yeah.
So it was great. My entire weekend used to be sorted. Either we were going out and watching the games, or we were staying in and watching the games.
Yeah. I
don't know why they don't do that.
I'd speak to my dad Friday night. We'd like just be having dinner and be like, oh, tomorrow it's double header, day after the double header. We'd plan our weekends according to the double header. Because in UK time, the double header would finish 7 p.m. We'd be like, okay, we'll go for dinner on a Saturday at 8 p.m., watch both double headers. I'd plan my cricket, I'd plan my work, studies, education around the double header. So over the
I
last
mean,
few.
overall, it's better for their audience. I just don't understand why they don't do that.
I think there's a
But of
double
course,
header
they
this
must
Sunday
be.
though. I think they're starting to go back to that somewhat. There is a double header this Sunday, I'm sure. And I think
Hmm.
I think they are bringing it back somewhat purely because there's so many more teams.
Hmm.
And I think it's tougher to if you
So
just
each team is still going to end up playing 14 games, right?
yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it would have been good enough with 18 games. You have a clear, but of course, I think that's also because there's no home and away scenario this season. So I think that might also play a role that since we are playing within these 3 or 4 venues, we have to make sure that the competition is, I mean, gets done with in time. But
Yeah.
I particularly do not like the format.
I'm not a huge fan of it either.
This
I feel
this
as
weird
a
round robin format doesn't make sense to
as a
me.
fan, like you want bragging rights, right? Like you've like if Chennai beat Mumbai once in that
Mm,
one-off game, that's it, right? As a fan,
yeah,
I want Chennai to then come back and beat them in the next match.
yeah.
Because if you have a
That is the
friend,
whole point of having a league. That is the whole point of having a league. Otherwise, you might as well have knockouts
yeah,
throughout.
I would have preferred two separate groups.
Mm,
I think go either way. Either have like two matches each
two
round,
separate groups.
or two separate groups of 6 teams each, or whatever.
Mm,
And at least in that way, you're playing everyone twice as consistency. I think this particular format is lacking consistency, which and becomes confusing as well. I'm just dreading to think as an RCB fan, somewhat in
mm.
trying to calculate how many matches are left. And looking at
Do you
the
think they'll add more teams though, or is 10 the number where they stop? Let's say in the next 3 years, 4 years, 5 years.
I think 10 is enough
Hmm?
because the more you have, more teams you have, the longer the tournament goes. I think then it's adding pressure on the players, adding fatigue to the players. And
I
I think
just forgot cricket and football. I wanted to draw a football analogy, but I now realize cricket and football are very different games. They have very different international and
exactly.
domestic
And like football
affiliate.
is a league sport.
Yeah, football is a league sport.
International sport being there, right? Cricket
Mhm.
is an international sport with league sides.
Now with league popping up all over the place.
Exactly. And I feel as though as a player, when you play more than 2 or 3 games a week, it starts to get strenuous on your body. And if you're
Mm.
adding more teams, but your time frame to play the games is still the same, because you still want to see the Australia versus India series. You still want, for me, international cricket takes far more precedence over IPL cricket.
IPL, I mean, now that I think of it, IPL has also evolved into just being an entertainment event.
Yeah.
As in, you'll put it on in the night at 8 and you'll watch it till it's done.
Yeah.
But you're not, I personally am not as invested in who wins or loses. It's,
Yeah.
of course, exciting to talk about, but I would not be dejected if my favorite team does not win or does not win as well. So, of course, international cricket always will have more priority
Answer I
over.
can draw there is if Bangalore get knocked out in the qualifiers, I'll probably
Yeah,
lose my night. I'll probably be sad. Or Chennai get knocked out.
yeah. Like I was sad when Delhi lost
Yeah.
in the finals. So
Next morning I'll wake up. I'll probably not be too bothered. Now, if I throw
exactly.
the 2019 World Cup match, which was
Yeah.
over 2 days in the semi-final, when India
Yeah.
lost that, I was distraught for at least 2-3 weeks.
Of course.
And
Yeah.
you think about it, and you can't fathom that it happened in the way it happened.
Exactly.
That's summing up what you said pretty well. I think everyone, yeah, you get sad, you get a bit emotionally attached to the team that you're supporting, but it's not the be all and end all.
Again, because IPL is entertainment and it is entertaining without a doubt.
Correct.
In that sense, I think even the 8 team number was the right spot because not too many teams and it's not too less.
Yeah.
I think they would eventually end up going back to
You think?
2 teams. I think 8 teams. I think. I
Yeah.
just personally think it's a better way to operate the tournament. 10. Now that I think of it, 10. They have tried 10 previously for a couple of seasons. I remember one season there were 9 teams for some reason, and maybe they try to do something different this time. Maybe it gets more interesting, or maybe they end up going back to 8. But again, this
Only
season,
have 6 teams.
hmm?
PSL only have 6 teams, right? And I think PSL is growing as a league. Like I enjoyed watching the PSL. I don't think people watch it as much as the IPL, but it's growing.
I watch the Big Bash every now and then when it's on, of course.
I think Big Bash is a good standard of cricket, but I think where Big Bash is lacking is that I have often find they have an international schedule, Australian international schedule that clashes with their Big Bash every year.
I mean, they do not have the,
So
let's
Finns,
say,
people like
the
that.
gravitas that the Indian team or the board has, that
It
they
does
can separate.
exactly. And suddenly you see people like Stark, Cummins, Labuschagne, Steve Smith, they're not playing the Big Bash. And as a non-Australian who probably doesn't know every single Australian lad who's playing in for Sydney Sixers, there's not much of an inclination to watch that if Smith isn't playing or Labuschagne isn't.
Makes sense. Makes sense.
Yeah,
In that sense, IPL has a, I mean, clearly IPL has that preference over other leagues because it just is more interesting, has more people watching.
Which brings me on to why are Indian players not allowed to play externally?
I mean, Indian players are very high value real estate. Let's look at them as commodities at the moment because we are talking about leagues where each player has a separate price.
Yeah.
They are quite literally very valuable products. So if you get them to play in every single league around the world, around the globe, it will dilute their
cost.
novelty, their novelty. I mean, that is just from a purely business perspective. Of course, there are other reasons that we want the novelty of having these players play just in this league. It's good for business. And of course, the fatigue and workload, those things are as important as the business aspect, in my opinion. But mostly it is just that. If you have Virat Kohli playing in a big bash league, people would start to care a little less about his association with RCB.
I agree. Yeah.
That's that. I think it's a good decision to have the players play in just this game. And I mean, from a very selfish Indian cricket fan perspective, I think it's a great decision to have them.
Just the flip side of the coin there is you have 15, 16 guys who represent India, right? You have 60, 70 guys who are good enough to play in the PSL, Big Bash, NatWest T20 Blast, Caribbean Premier League. Guys who aren't anywhere near the Indian cricket team, right? I'll throw some names out for you. People that, like Unmukh Chand is an example. He took a retirement. And now he's playing for Melbourne Renegades.
Yeah.
Big Bash, right? There are other players as well, like I'm trying to think from the top of my head, like who aren't, like Ishant Sharma won't play any T20 cricket for India ever again. That's a fact.
Yes, but he can't go and play in any other league because he's still an Indian player.
Exactly, but he's more than good enough to play for any team in the PSL. Well, maybe not PSL, but any team in
it's a Big Bash or BBL.
Exactly, or the South African Cricket League or the Caribbean Premier League.
Yeah,
I think so while that is doing good for these players and like the novelty remains, I think it's like taking away the opportunities to earn money. And for like some of the smaller players, like yes, Ishant Sharma might not need money, but maybe someone from the under 19.
It's a fair point. It's a fair point. I mean, it's an extremely valid point. Can you, as a cricketer, just retire from international T20 cricket and then go out to play league games?
So people are doing. Unmukh Chand has done that. He can no longer represent India in cricket
at any stage.
At any stage,
it's just T20
international cricket. So now he's in the USA playing for USA and playing leagues around the world. I think it's like more and more cricketers are doing that because they're getting the realization that we're playing Ranji cricket, we're not progressing on to IPL as much, or from the IPL we're stagnating, we're not really playing. I'll give an example. Someone like Nitish Rana. Nitish Rana has been performing extremely well for India, in the IPL for seasons, quite a few seasons. Rahul Tripathi, these kind of players that are probably not going to play for India.
Yeah.
So why are we not giving them the opportunity of playing elsewhere?
Where they can. I think there isn't a vocal enough. I mean, of course, there is a vocal player base, but it's not probably vocal enough. To be fair, though, playing domestic cricket in India, at least at the national stage, like if you're playing Ranji or other tournament, does pay you decently enough that you can sustain a very good lifestyle. Yeah. Not lavish, but sustain a really good lifestyle compared to from an Indian perspective. But again, that is a topic that is very different from the IPL. That's a topic that we can definitely discuss sometime in the future.
For long.
For long. I mean, of course, I would love to. But at least for this IPL, I am excited. I think I will be watching the game. I mean, we're out here. I'm out here with my family at the moment. So we'll be probably sitting watching the game on this television.
Wrap it up.
And we can wrap it up.
Who is
I'm
winning?
excited for the game.
Chennai or Kolkata? Who wins?
Chennai, 100%. I want to see how Jadeja does as a captain.
But
Excited for that.
KKR has the highest win percentage of
In
any
opening games?
in the opening game.
I mean, again, but I would still want Chennai to win.
Yeah, personally, I'd also love Chennai to win, but I'm extremely excited. Anyways, guys, thank you so much. Again, Vedant, thank you so much for joining.
Thank you for having me. This was really fun. I haven't had a cricket contest. That's the reason I was very excited, because I haven't had cricket conversations in so long, because the friends that I used to have these conversations with are no longer as interested in cricket as I am. Probably because they're busier than I am in life. But of course, thank you for having me, and would always be open to doing more of these.
Please come back. Absolutely. And obviously, your fan base is a lot bigger than mine. But if anybody who's watching this hasn't seen Vedant's content, please go over and do watch it. Trust me, it's one of the best among the Indian YouTubers for sure. I definitely enjoyed a lot. I'll tag his account in the description. So please like, please subscribe.
Perfect. Please comment down below who you are rooting for in this IPL. What did you think of the predictions that we made? What are your predictions? Who do you want to see win? What players do you like? What players do you do not like particularly? And yeah, thank you so much for watching this.
Thank you. Like and subscribe. Bye-bye.